Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today, Jamie Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer, Advanced Solutions Group at Leidos. Leidos has a track record of helping integrate existing complex systems in many areas of the federal government. Leidos attributes success to using a concept called open systems. Let's try to define some terms and maybe figure out what this term means. So, Jamie, open systems, open source, I'm all confused.
Yeah, so let's start with open systems. Open systems is really a methodology for designing and architecting a complex system. And basically what you want to do is expose the interfaces so that it makes it easier for new capabilities to be integrated into the system. So it's really a system architecture type effort. Open source refers to a collection of software where people put their software out into an open space where you can freely take it, modify it, and the deal is that you put the modified software back into that open source.
And the whole objective here is to reduce cost. So what happens is, we know in technology there's going to be a lot of changes and innovation. So how do you prepare for that by making the system modular or open?
Absolutely. All of our customers have realized that maintaining some of these complex systems can become very costly if they're not done properly. So across the Army, Navy, and Air Force, they are all looking for open systems. It makes it easier to integrate new capabilities. They make them easier to maintain. And when things get easier, they become less costly.
Conversation we had, I think last week, talked about faster, better, cheaper. And that's the whole objective here. I mean, the huge organizations like the Navy are trying to figure out a better way to accomplish things. And if you have an open system, it dawned on me, that open system makes for open competition as well, doesn't it? Keeps everyone honest.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, when you get an open system, you really open up your business model as well. If you look traditionally, some of these big complex systems have been developed and provided by one company. And then when you want to go modify them, all of the expertise and all of the knowledge that you need to modify them sits there. And so customers experience what they refer to as vendor lock. And so with an open system, you really maintain an open business model as well. And so that helps keep the price down.
It also makes for a confident work group. I mean, the advanced group that you have, you're just saying, bring on all comers. We're the best.
Yeah, so for us, open systems is really the way of life for us. And when we look at a problem, we always think about, okay, what's the best way to solve this for our customer? We recognize that we don't have all of the skills and all of the capabilities that are going to be needed to solve these problems. And we work with many different partners to bring new capabilities. And at the heart of all of that is having an open system so that you can bring in new capabilities affordably and address the customer's needs.
I was doing some research before this interview, and I came across these group of 4 words: must mainstream the mainframe. And so what's happening here is many systems that were mainframe, usually locked in proprietary. What you're trying to do is make that transition and make it modular and flexible.
Yeah, if you look back over time, and I started doing this work in the 80s, and back in the 80s when we were designing complex systems, the real limiting factor was the size of memory that you had in a computer. And so we were working with Yuck 7 computers that had 128K of memory, and you really had to design your system to fit into a tiny little box.
And the smartest person in the room could do with the fewest amount of keystrokes. Wasn't that the case?
Yes, and you had to design complex interfaces so that you could meet the timing requirements. And so that was, 30 years ago. And now today, with the advent of all the computing power that we have available to us, you can really look at the system with kind of a blank sheet of paper from an architecture perspective. And that enables you to modularize functionality and create components that are easy to use over and over again and update when you bring in new capabilities.
So what the software developers would talk about is APIs and structuring the APIs so they can be flexible for future systems.
Correct. Yeah, and one of the things that we do, for instance, we develop a fair amount of command and control software, and we have a thing called the Leidos Enterprise Architecture Framework. We refer to it as LEAF. What we do with LEAF is we've constructed a series of command and control software capabilities that are modularized with open APIs that you can use for all kinds of command and control applications.
And when I hear command and control, I think of system integrity and security. And so it's one thing to be able to do it for Joe's Donuts, another thing to do it for the DoD. So this maintains high system integrity as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. All of our customers, many of our customers, are looking for mission critical and safety critical applications. So we work very hard to make sure from an integrity perspective and from a resiliency perspective that we know what the software is going to do and that we understand how it's going to behave. And then we also understand if it's not behaving properly, if somebody has hacked into it, we're capable of identifying that.
So does this approach put your customers in a position where they can take advantage of all this innovation that's just exploding everywhere?
Yes. And one of the things that has happened over time is threats have changed extremely fast. And so there's some of the traditional threats. If you think about missiles and different kinds of weapon systems, they're changing on a much quicker pace. The cyber threat changes every day. And so what our customers are looking for is a system where they can integrate new sensors and new weapons to deal with the fast-paced threat.
And that's the only way to do it, because if you're locked in one specific type of vendor, you're not going to be open to new technologies, are you?
Correct.
Great. We're going to pause here for a short break. My guest today is Jamie Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer, Advanced Solutions Group at Leidos. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, Faster, Better, Cheaper, Maximizing Open Systems in Government, sponsored by Leidos on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.